Welcome to The Bridge. I'm your host, Chris Morga, and today we have a fantastic guest who's been a very dear friend of mine for quite a long time. We're both coaches in the industry and been able to help people along the way on their journey to becoming the best version of themselves. And Matt, I appreciate you coming on, man. It's been a long time coming to get this done and rolling. So I appreciate you, brother.
Thank you, man. It's really good to be here, Chris. It's been a long time, man. Seriously, I'm grateful.
Yeah, it really has, man. We followed each other for, oh my God, since the beginning. I always say on LinkedIn,
Yeah.
we have these years or classes, and I always call us kind of the class of 2018 when we really started pushing hard to see what we can get out of it.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, man.
You know, one of the things I've always really appreciated about you is that you've always had this fearless kind of go get 'em attitude where you challenge yourself consistently to be able to bring that to other people. And you're one of those people that you're not going to ask anybody to do anything unless you're going to do it yourself. And I've always respected that about you.
Thanks, man. No, that's, I can't take a client any deeper than I'm willing to take myself. So it's really important for me that people see that I do the work. And I also know the adversity that I've had to overcome to get there. And I've had the corporate experience. I've had the experience with health issues, experience with, having, having kid, having a family, having a new house, transition. Like I've done all that stuff and I've found ways to overcome it. So I can find things that are relatable. I can also find, reasons why you can crush excuses too. So yeah, no, I'm willing to walk it. I'm willing to do the work too.
I'm glad you brought up the corporate experience because for a lot of the listeners, as we talked offline, a lot of the people that I work with in a career coaching element have these foundational elements that they brought from corporate. And now they're toying around with diversification of their revenue streams just to protect their lifestyles in the event of a layoff. So you were in sales for quite some time, or sales management, right?
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of in the corporate field leadership role in retail, overseeing leaders who lead other leaders in stores. So yeah, I facilitated the people who sold this stuff. So yeah, absolutely. It was very demanding. It was a lot of travel. It was round the clock kind of responsibility. You work holidays, all of that stuff. It was intense work.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. And then, can you kind of walk me through how the skills learned from that really helped you to transition into, by using your tagline, living with a courageous heart, and also bringing that to Atomic Mornings. Can you kind of walk that pathway for me?
Yeah, I think the problem I found that most people have in retail is being able to articulate what their skills and core competencies are and how they translate into other fields or into entrepreneurship. Because retail is like a massive melting pot of skill sets. Like they really are some of the most talented and diverse individuals I know because you're trained in operations and sales and marketing, leadership, loss prevention, like you name it, like retail employees get a little bit of everything. And while I allowed it to work me to death, what it did was it taught me a business acumen and an operational efficiency side of it that transitioned flawlessly into growing my own business, along with an extreme comfort with sales and marketing too. Because when I started my business, as in coaching industry, I knew exactly what I needed to do to set up all the ops. And I also knew the bare minimum that I needed too. So it wasn't overwhelming, but if you're tracking your key metrics, it's a lot easier to know how you're doing and where you're going and what you need to accomplish versus I had a lot of great coaching peers that had no idea how to run the business side of it. And it basically was a hobby for them, and if you don't love the business side of it just as much as you love the coaching side of it, it is a hobby. You have to be just as passionate about the business side of it. It's irresponsible not to. So understanding those pieces was huge. Understanding like how to track my LY numbers, all of those things gave me great perspective on like, wait a minute, I'm actually doing really good. I'm having triple digit comps, month over month here. And I have an incredibly low overhead. I'm able to track my margin, my burn rate, all of those things. And so it allows me to build a very efficient, profitable business. And so I like knowing where I stand. And then I can use that knowledge because there's nothing wrong with making money. Because I use that knowledge and I help share that with my clients too, because they're running businesses also. And so, uh, yeah, you need to be an expert at that.
That's perfect, because the key is understanding the systems, right? And we see that
Mm-hmm.
more prevalent now than any time before. I mean, I think it's always been there, but now it's at the forefront, where people are understanding how to streamline, create systems, as you said, monitor their metrics to
Yeah.
see where their success factors are versus where they're downtrending. A lot of people that I know of seem to put out content just to put out content's sake. They want to show up
Yeah.
and constantly be there so they can show the consistency. But is it really landing? Is it really offering that value-based proposition that people are
Or are you just
expecting
doing what you
within
feel
your
like you're
area?
supposed to do? Yeah.
Right,
That's the
right.
thing.
And
A lot of people don't even understand, first of all, how to qualify your client. And then once you qualify your client to see if they fit your model, like, do you also know how to put out a value proposition? Like, here's why you should pay me. Here's the value prop behind that. Now that I know exactly who you are and you align with the values of my company and I know we'd be a great fit, now here's the value prop behind it. A lot of people don't know how to articulate that. Instead, they just articulate great buzzwords like, well, I help people in transition and stuff.
mhm.
There's no specifics to it. It's like there's nothing. I find that most people in my industry are terrified of niching down. And they're like, well, what if I miss out on people like that want to work with me? I'm like, look, there's a bajillion generalists out there. I'm like, it's okay to niche down. Actually, niching down allows you to provide a premium service because not as many people are doing it. So like when I transition, like I still have a full-time coaching practice that does focus on working with executives and C-suite and business owners, but my atomic mornings process, that's a very niche thing. Like when it comes to morning routines and coaching around mornings, there's Hal Elrod, there's Robin Sharma, there's me. I don't know a ton of other people that are really niche down into like this is mornings, and even the type of style I do with mornings is very niche down. Actually, David Baker is an amazing author on niching down, the business of expertise,
Mhm.
and providing a very specific service is genius. You know, it's what separates you from everybody else. So I've learned, how to do that, and I learned that even from my retail world too. Like when I was working with Under Armour, they found a way to separate themselves and niche down by deciding not to be like Nike. We're not going to try and be like Nike. We're not Nike. They used to be. They used to think that that's what they wanted. But then they're like, no, we're not like that. We focus on innovation. We focus on signing athletes who are kind of misfits, who are kind of doing things a little differently. We want those people. We want to find the people who are the underdogs right now. And we're going to find those guys and sign them. They were really good at that. And then they said, we just don't want to be Nike. We want to be Under Armour. We want to do our own thing. And so that's great. Learning to have a specialty is awesome. And I remember even with Under Armour, there was a time when they were losing market share with their really tight shirts. I mean, yeah, that's what they were known for, super
I
tight
remember that.
shirts. They'll say that. They were losing market share in it because other competitors were starting to catch on to it. Oh, okay, we can design this technology too. So when they saw that, they realized we need to cut back on some of our SKUs and some of our product line and make sure we go back to our bread and butter and master that again and not lose market share there. We always need to be good at tight shirts. That has to be it. That's always going to be our foundation. And I love that they were able to do that. It makes total sense. And so I've learned how to take that and be fearless into bringing it to my own business and not be scared of like, well, I'm going to miss out on people. So what? That's fine. I want to find my core audience on things. And so it's been great by focusing on mornings and finding a passion in that. It also funnels into my full-time coaching practice because a lot of them will go from that and they'll also want coaching too. And so I'm very grateful for how this has all worked out.
That's important to know the numbers too. When you mentioned about niching down and people saying that being a generalist is more beneficial to them, when you niche down, even if you go down to, I'm just going to use mine for an example. I use sales, marketing, and product are the
Mhm.
areas that I coach in because I know those areas well. I can go to QA, I can go to HR and things like that, but it's
Mhm.
just I don't know them as well as I I do. And by niching down and saying I work with sales, marketing, and product professionals in career
Yeah.
transition, there's a million plus people that are in that industry. So niching down, I'm not losing out on any potential business. I'm
No.
just streamlining and being able to focus on what these professionals' pain points are. So I speak more
Yes.
directly to them and it becomes more beneficial
Exactly.
that way.
Exactly. And that's so important because some people are looking for a very specific thing. And if you can speak to that thing and that pain point, you're right. People will pay a premium for that, knowing that that's what you specialize in. And they're not just
Yeah.
going to a generalist. Honestly, I typically find people that go to generalist type of work, there's nothing wrong with it. But in all honesty, I've seen it's fear based.
Yeah.
And it's fear based because, again, they don't want to miss out on any kind of potential client. That's not going to help you grow your business. That's not going to help you be known for anything. It's just known as a catch-all. The same thing. There's marketing and advertising agencies out there. But being a generalist in that area, everybody can do that. Everybody can do that same thing. But if you specialize in specific companies, specific styles of branding and products and services, well, then you're known for something and people will pay more for that.
Yeah. And you could even take it further, right? Sales,
Uh-huh.
marketing, product. Is it lead generation, demand gen? Can you go even further with that?
Hmm.
And there's so much within what is it? The niche, the riches are in the niches, or something like that. I remember hearing
Something
that
like that.
sometime.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I love that. And you brought up a good point before about how some of your atomic morning clients will start moving up your value ladder to become
Yeah.
part of your executive coaching. Can you kind of talk to a lot of listeners about how you've created a value ladder that helps serve people from wanting to have better morning routines and then also to communicate or to be coached effectively? How does that value ladder work for you?
Yeah. What it starts is identifying your very specific pain point, and that is for people their mornings, their time. Actually, it's their time. That's their pain point. I don't have enough time to do things, and I feel like my health is falling apart, and I never feel like I'm enough because I get booed at work, I get booed at home. Like, I've got no fans right now and I'm falling apart myself. Like, my own body is booing me too. Like, so people come to me and they see this morning process and they're like, I just need help. Uh, what they get that's a little different with it is there are a lot of places out there that can give you, here's a 5-step program on how to get your mornings going. Here's a step-by-step thing. Join the 5 a.m. club. Like, I really don't care about 5 a.m. Like, all I care about is what your time is to wake up. Like, what's your version of 5 a.m.? I'll give you some consulting side of it and give you expertise that I've learned from this and stuff that some like specific knowledge that I've studied and say, hey, here's some best practices. But then I add the coaching side of it, which tackles the emotional piece of it, of why you stay in bed and why you don't have boundaries at work and why you stay awake all night. Because I want to create something sustainable. And to create sustainability in this, that's where coaching comes in, because that's where we tackle the emotional side of it. I
Mhm.
think the best trainers out there for fitness are also the ones that tackle the emotional side of being physically fit and proper nutrition. So that way it is sustainable. Anyone can follow a program when they're told what to do. But the moment that you stop working with them and you're not being told what to do, the minute life starts falling apart and you're backed into a corner and you start getting stressed and anxious, you're tempted to go back to the way things were. I want to tackle that piece so you have those skills too, not just the routines. I want you to have the skills to know how to cope in a healthy way. And so from the coaching piece that we do during this program, that's where they get to see, like, all right, if I do this full time also, I can see the benefits of how this happens. And I always include, like, an hour session of coaching with anytime someone signs up for Atomic. Like, great, let's get an hour coaching in there too and see what that's like for you. So they get that experience and they start seeing, like, all right, I can see how this can help me in my daily life too, and in more in my career. So I've really appreciated tying the consulting and the coaching piece into one program on this, and then they get the idea of, like, coaching, what 100% of that would look like.
It's important in coaching to to understand where you're going. And I like that, how you've incorporated it, because as I'm listening to it, there's a lot of Vince Lombardi in there, finding that common goal and giving the repetitive motions and giving the constant and consistent challenges to be able to better themselves. Yeah. And I think that's the essence of what good coaching is understanding the end game and reverse engineering a plan and protocol, as it were,
Yeah.
to get there. So that's important.
The
And I
irony,
like that
the
methodology.
irony in that is my grandmother's chemistry teacher was Vince Lombardi. So
Are you kidding?
that was
Or are
his
you
last.
joking?
No, I'm not joking. She went to Catholic school in New Jersey, and so it's in her yearbook. That was her chemistry teacher. He was basketball and football coach, and that was his last year. And that's when he started going towards the pros.
Wow, that's incredible. Small world.
That's
Small
wild. That's
world.
wild. Yeah.
6 degrees of separation, right?
Yeah, man, that's crazy.
Now, the Atomic Mornings, does that have any correlation? I mean, did you read Atomic Habits and it kind of spawned from there? Or is it something that's just in your nature, that Atomic kind of, because you bring the fire all the time, and so.
Atomic started by accident, and it didn't get that name until later. I hadn't read Atomic Habits when I created it. It was just something that I decided I need to do my habits differently, because I know I'm extreme. I know I'm all to the wall here. And I know my normal approach would have been, let's design the perfect morning. And I'm going to do all these things. I'm going to work out, I'm going to pray, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to journal, I'm going to do all this stuff. And it's just so much shit. And then I'm going to like fail on some of it and give up on the whole thing. Like I just get frustrated. This time I wanted a different approach, and I had no intention really of making it public. It was just for me. I always told myself this story that I'm not a morning guy. I'm a night person. But the truth is I never gave mornings a fair chance. Like I just told myself that. I only got up early for flights. But I did remember a time when I was 15 and I was getting up at 4:30 every morning to get in shape. Like I was a chubby kid, and I decided, like, you know what, I want to change the game. It was the summer after my freshman year, going into my sophomore year, and I started learning how to run 5 miles a day in the morning around this pond that I was staying on in the summertime. And I started it with really very simple. Like I was just like, I'm not going to walk the thing. I'm always going to either trot, jog, I'll run some of it, but I'll never just stop and walk. I'm just going to keep going. And it was amazing over the course of the summer, like how that picked up. And then next thing I know, I'm hauling around that lake. And then I'm also doing bounding and sprinting drills. And I'm starting to do workouts, and I'm drinking a gallon of water a day. Man, I was in phenomenal shape. Um, and I remember that tiny chapter of life. And I was like, man, I got to tap into that again. But I started really simple. It was just wake up. That's it. I got up at 4:30. I decided that was my number because I decided how much time I wanted to myself every day before everyone else got up. And I know it sounds like a crazy number, but that was my number. And I just said, I'm going to get up. And the first week, all I'm going to do is my only expectation is just to be awake. That's it. I'll celebrate that victory. I don't care if I'm sitting on the couch the whole time, but I will be up. And I allowed it to make me organically get hungry to do more, because I did go to the gym, in the beginning, but I didn't make myself go. It just like it started happening. I want to go. I want to do this. Like, and I just started creating these routines, and I was like, I want to eat healthier. And then I was like, you know what? I've never really been into reading. I'm going to read, but I want to read fiction. Like, I'm tired of self-help books. I just want to, so I got lost in the Harry Potter books. I never read those books. I was like, well, I'm going to read those. It was awesome. I found how it like lit up my creativity. But the funny thing is I decided to document it with a video. Like that happened on day one just by chance. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to put this on Instagram Live. What the hell? And that was day one. And then all of a sudden I posted it every day and people started following it. It was really weird. And I never missed a day. I went 31 straight days and I kept going. I didn't stop. But it was life changing. And along the way, I had people reaching out wanting to be a part of it. And that was my first client for mornings was Ryan Gill. And he reached out and he reached out, I think on day 25, something like that. He's like, hey, congrats on your mornings, man. Like this is my Achilles heel. I run a few companies, but I know I could be way better. And he's open, he shares his story. And he's like, I'd like to sign up for your program. And I immediately said, yeah, that sounds great. And I was like, so I created one for him.
We're
Like,
doing
I
this
just
now. All
created one.
right.
I didn't tell him, I didn't have a program. He's like, oh yeah, absolutely. Uh, and I didn't know much about his background. It took until June. And that was like this June, this month is the 4-year anniversary of when I started this program. And ironically, he's doing the program again with me. It's like a tune-up, and it just happens to be 4 years from now when he started it. But yeah, I mean, he runs like some massive events and some great companies out in Calgary. I didn't know he was running this event called the Gathering out in Banff. It was huge, but like, he's human, just like the rest of us. And he has the same limiting beliefs and all these things and the same stresses that kept him in bed. That's what I learned. I learned I was staying in bed because the weight of the world and the expectations of the next day, would just make me not want to get up some days. I'd rather just stay here until I absolutely have to get up. And that was not serving me at all. And so, yeah, I changed my life by doing this. And then I realized I could help change other people's lives. But it had to start with understanding why I was staying in bed. It had to do with why I was staying up late. And so debunking a lot of these myths and these stories, I told myself, I love the one about like, well, I'm more creative at night. And I hear that from a lot of people. And it's like, I'm always creative. Like, I'm always creative. It's just when I create time for it, I'm super creative. So all I did was reallocate my time, and the funny part is the real secret to mornings is actually the nights. That's it. Anyone can white knuckle their way out of bed. People get really pissy about going to bed. Like people they throw tantrums like toddlers.
That's
I
interesting.
don't want to go to bed. I don't want to. I'm missing out on life. I don't want to miss out on life. I don't want to. And I'm like, what are you doing with your life at 10 and 11 p.m. and midnight? You're just tooling around on your phone. And a lot of them are usually like, I was just trying to stay awake on the couch to watch your shows. Like they weren't doing anything with it. They had intentions of all these things they'd like to do with their time, and they didn't do it because they were getting tired. And then they end up eating garbage. I would eat garbage because I stayed up late. The only reason I ate garbage was because my body was tired as hell, and I was telling it I don't want to go to bed. And so when I said I don't want to go to bed, my body's like, well, we need carbs and sugars, man. We need something right now. So you eat like crap, then you go straight to sleep. You can get 8 hours of sleep, but you're going to sleep like absolute garbage because your heart rate's through the roof trying to burn that food that you just ate or that wine you just drank or the alcohol you just had before bed. You get garbage sleep.
Yep.
And I studied it. I've had sleep. Look, I have narcolepsy. I have Addison's disease. I have things that really put me at a disadvantage from peaceful sleep, but I still found a way, so no excuses. I've got 2 very challenging disorders. I don't make enough adrenaline or cortisol, and I'm narcoleptic. Like, so my energy's all jacked up, but through routines, I'm able to make that happen and having knowledge of that. But the problem is you're not missing out on life. You're just reallocating your time. And it's going
That's
to the
right.
morning when it's way more productive. So instead of you trying to do stuff at night as you get more exhausted and your ability to do things starts to crash and go downhill, you're doing it in the morning where you're exhausted, but you start to ramp up.
Right.
And you're only getting better and better from there. And you go into your day with a sense of emotional awareness, physical awareness, and clarity. So you get ahead of the day.
And that's important, man. My family knows at 11 o'clock at night, every single night, dad's going to bed. That's it.
Yeah.
I'm up at 6. I did in 2018, 2019, I think I was doing the 4:30 in the morning club, and I was getting up and I was writing because I always wanted to be a journal type of person, just to get my thoughts out before the kids got up, before my wife got up. And I did that for about 6 months. And then, truth be told, came into January, I was like, screw this, because I was going walking
Yeah.
and everything. But ever since, oh my God, since my 20s, 11 o'clock was my max. And I'm out, and then I get up. And I'm the same way. I feel like I'm much more productive in the early mornings because 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm hitting that wall. And I'm just dying to go upstairs and grab a cup of coffee just to get for 3 more hours, But I noticed that if I start downing water which I've been drinking a lot more water. My wife's been yelling at me. So I've been drinking a lot more water. I'll notice that I don't need the caffeine hit as much as I think I do. Your body just typically goes into this repetition or this kind of resource of, okay, it's 2:00,
Yeah.
just down a half a bottle of water, and you're fine. You just keep pushing through.
Yeah.
So
I drink
those
a gallon a
false
day.
things. Yeah, the gallon. I'm nowhere near that yet. That's a lot.
I just have to. My body needs it. Like, it's so important because I also do have to. I have a heavy consumption of caffeine, and part of it's medication because I am narcoleptic, so I have to work with that. But it's also about knowing your body and also knowing your rhythm. And there's
Mhm.
no problem in taking naps either. Like, I tell people, I'm like, look, if you know that you naturally start to crash at 1 p.m., why are you scheduling stuff at 1 p.m.? You're just setting yourself up for massive disappointment and shame because you're
Awesome.
underperforming at 1 o'clock. So stop doing it. Like, what are you
Love it.
doing? Like, if it's just total insanity. Take 30, 45 minutes from 1 to 1:45 and block it off for nothing. I don't care if you're just sitting around, whatever, but rest, try and nap, whatever. But don't schedule anything for that time. Recover, you know?
What
So
about the
it's just
corporate
about doing
professionals?
stuff that makes sense.
What would you say to some of the corporate professionals that, their bosses or their, other people scheduling those meetings at between 1, 2, and 3, where they just don't have that time? How can they, number one, either train themselves to be more alert or present during that time, or
Mhm.
how can they still get some rest time while still having to push through those meetings? You have anything around that?
Yeah, I mean, everyone, so many people that I worked with doing this program were executives or business owners, and Ryan was a prime example of that. I mean, he ran two companies and he was always heavily in demand. He's the one who scheduled the meetings most of the time. And so in the beginning, he scheduled meetings to cater to his ability to sleep in, and it was enabling in a lot of ways. So, but creating boundaries around it was huge too. And so, look, if you have to have meetings during the times when you crash, then you're gonna have to find ways to either take naps before or after or something. Like you, this is where it's important to also find what gives you energy too, and that's why your nutrition is going to be huge. I also ask a lot of my clients too, make sure you get some lab work done, have some blood work done, make sure that you're hormonally balanced too.
Good
Because
point.
I've done a lot of work on, especially with men on the testosterone side of things. And look, after 30, men's testosterone levels start to naturally decline. I know mine took a hard hit after 30 just because I got really sick. And I had to learn how to repair that through medicine, through diet, through nutrition, like all of those things. But there's nothing, you can't white knuckle your way if your hormones are shot. It's not a matter of willpower. You are chemically screwed. And so get some blood work done, make sure that your thyroid is good, that your nutrients are in line, and that way you've got the help that you need in order to do this. Because everything I'm going to teach you is also going to help you with hormone production too. Proper structure, proper hormone production. Structured sleep is where it's at. You can get 8 hours every night, but if your 8 hours is coming from different time blocks every time, it's not helping.
Right.
So you're totally messing yourself up.
That's the power of
So
routines, right? I mean,
yeah, it's
routines are
huge.
very, very powerful because your body gets used to something and it starts to prompt that way around those routines and you get more out of it. That for
Yeah,
me, that was the most valuable piece right there is to just start with seeing your doctor, get some blood work, start to
yeah,
understand what's going on in your
100%.
body first
Hmm.
and foremost, because then you can start to work with your body at its peaks and valleys. So I love
Yeah,
that. That was
exactly.
gold.
Yeah,
That was
no,
gold.
it's so important because I know how discouraging it is, and like that's why it was great when I learned I had narcolepsy because I was like, man, why am I so tired all the time? And I was beating myself up for it, and then I realized, but I also don't rely on medication to be a magic pill. I'm like, I got to stack the deck here and make it work for me. And so I can't bitch about my health if I'm also feeding myself crap and I'm not going to bed on time and I'm not working out. So anyone who's saying that they don't have time for that, when they're just saying, well, I definitely have time to burn out and I have time to get sick.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say I don't have time for self care, but I will say I definitely have time to get sick. And, I had one guy, and he finally made sense to him. He knew that every 3 months, you know, he knew he needed to take like at least 2 weeks off. But if he didn't, he always found that he was getting sick, and he took 2 weeks off. And I'm like, well, then why don't you just schedule 2 weeks off, man? Because it's either you can schedule 2 weeks off for yourself and take that time on your terms and enjoy it, or your body's going to take it for you, and you're going to spend it miserable and sick and recovering the whole time. So it's not going to be great. What are you doing? Just create the time for it. There's nothing wrong with that. And same thing with executives with these meetings, create boundaries. You got to create boundaries the best that you can. Normally at that position, you have a lot more influence on when these meetings are. And so create some boundaries. And just because you get up early does not mean that you are now accessible for others. Absolutely not. You
Yes.
created more
Oh
time
my God.
for that.
Yes.
Keep it off limits. You are not allowed to call me yet. Like, this is my time. And I even said it with family too. I'm like, hey, like, my little boy would get up. He started getting up super early too. And I loved it. It was fine. But I still wanted him to see what it meant to create time for yourself and for self-care, and that it was appropriate. So I would tell him, like, hey, it's okay that you're up, but it's quiet time right now. You can draw or you can read, but like no TV, no games. It's quiet time,
I'm
and that's
smiling because
okay.
my youngest son is very much like that. He'll get up. If he gets up early and I'm up and I'm sitting there and I'm just time blocking or I'm just looking over a few things, emails or whatever, my kid will start yapping away like it's just he's putting on a TEDx talk. And I
Yeah,
have to tell him, I'm like, listen, bud, hang on. I'm not even up yet. So like hang on a
yeah.
minute because he's ready to go. 6 o'clock in the morning, he's ready to talk your ear off.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah. Look, truth is, like, I don't like waking up early. I still don't. Like, I just don't like it at all. But I like what it does for me. And that's what
Yeah,
motivates
me
me.
too.
And so, like, bottom line is anything that's instant gratification is usually never going to feel good. Like, I promise you, like, if you want to sleep in and you give yourself that gratification, you're probably going to wake up saying, like, I did not get what I wanted out of that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you never do. Like, the extra 10 minutes that you choose to sleep in, like, or 15 minutes, there's no ROI on that. Like, you keep
No.
telling yourself, you just are pissed off because you don't feel you're still exhausted. It's the whole negotiation process. So, and like, look, you got to have wind down routines and you got to have startup routines. It's really simple. Like, if you think about your computer, like, if you hard shut down your computer and you force it to shut off instead of hitting shut down, like, it boots up stupid. Like, it says, like, we shut
It
down
does.
improperly. We need to take a minute to boot back up. Why? Because when you hit shut down on your computer, it has a cadence of things that it does till it
Startup
powers off.
scripts. Yep.
It shuts down the background, shuts down the active programs, the background programs, all of these different things. It dumps, memory, like, it does all this stuff, and then it boots up in its own cadence also. If you change that, you don't do it properly, it doesn't start up right. It's the same thing when you wake up in the morning. If you went to bed in a bad way without routines and you're eating garbage and you're stressed out of your mind, you just shut yourself down because you're exhausted, yeah, you're not going to boot up right in the morning either.
That's a
So
fantastic analogy.
you can be
That's awesome.
you're going to be exhausted at the end of the day, but why don't you choose how you're going to be exhausted? Are you exhausted because you had a full day and you did all the stuff you're supposed to do and you're naturally tired? Or are you exhausted because you're stressed out of your mind and you drank at night and you ate yourself silly, or you did cannabis or whatever it is you do and you're just wiped out? That's not a healthy way to go to sleep because you just black out eventually from just pure stress. You're going to bring that into your sleep and you're going to boot up in the morning feeling like crap too. So create a cadence for it. Our bodies are computers too.
Yeah, man. Oh man, there was so much in there. That was fantastic. And I love that. If I may borrow that analogy, because that's
Have at it,
fantastic.
man.
I want to bring it full circle here. So in the beginning of the show, we talked about some of the skills that you had learned in your corporate life and how you transition those into your entrepreneurship model. Now, let's just say, just as hypothetically speaking, let's say 10 years from now, Matt decides, you know what, I had a great run in entrepreneurship. I loved my coaching practice. I want to go back to work in the corporate realm.
Oh, hell no.
Do you feel, no, I'm just saying, just a
Oh my God, I
hypothetical.
almost threw up in my mouth.
Do you feel that these skills that you've learned from being a coach and running your own business, how do you think that they would attribute into going back into the corporate world? Would you focus on more executive and C-suite, knowing what you know now and running a business?
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. Look, I was still running a business in the corporate world. It just, at the end of the day, it wasn't my money. It was my responsibility. It'd be $250 million sometimes, in a year, with all these different stores and having to deliver these results. Oh yeah. I mean, I felt like you were running a business in a lot of ways with that kind of responsibility. But as an entrepreneur though, like now the risk is on the line.
Right. Yeah.
There was so much safety that I had, working in corporate and that stuff, because, if there was failure, I could lose my job, but if the company was failing and it was out of my control, like, yeah, all right. But it also meant like I was limited on my success too. Like I could work all the hours in the world and hey, I got a maximum 5% raise. That would be huge, or you get promoted. But in entrepreneurship, I have unlimited success and I also have unlimited failure. But I love that. I absolutely love that. But for the corporate world, my big thing is like being able to teach boundaries. Like, I don't know there's nothing to respect about an executive who's absolutely crushing it at work, but they're overweight, their family hates them, and they never spend any time taking care of themselves. There's nothing to brag about that. Anyone
That's
can
right.
do one thing really well. I mean, you could not work and also be really in shape too, but you're not contributing anything to society or your family or anything,
Right.
So you really want to be an actual pro, like then find a way to do both. That's real boss shit. Like right there. That's the real deal. When you see the executive and business owner or just anybody who's working in the real world here with their adult jobs, like, is finding a way to take care of yourself too. And don't you dare try and come up with a whole story for me about why you can't do it. I bring it on if you want. I will cut that to pieces. Like, cause I've been there. Like, look, when I started this company, I was 6 months behind on my mortgage and I was on disability. I was sick. I had a brand new house built, like a $500,000 home built. And I had an infant son. I was the only income in my family at the time. Like,
I remember that house. Yeah.
and I never lost it. That was the best part. I never lost it. I ended up selling it like a year ago, but I never lost it. I sold it and I made a killing off of it because the housing market was amazing.
That was a beautiful home. That was a beautiful home.
Man, I love it. But I live a beautiful life too now too.
There's the key.
Like,
yep.
I traveled the whole country. I mean, my Jeep has 206,000 miles on it. I bought it with 32. We saw every national park you could possibly think of, traveled everywhere, still have a nice house. Went back to Maine, got, closer to family. Live a beautiful life, not just a beautiful home. Like, I'm not held hostage to a mortgage.
Here's the best part. No excuses.
No excuses.
That's what I always love.
I did it. I didn't lose the house. I ended up by year 2 surpassing the greatest salary I ever had in my corporate world. And I built it from nothing. And all I used was a free LinkedIn site. Like, that's it. I had a LinkedIn page, couldn't afford business cards, couldn't afford a website, sometimes couldn't afford gas to go see a local client. I found a way. And that's the thing too. Business acumen. Guess what? I didn't need a magic software to do anything. I had a spreadsheet. That's it. I had Excel and I could do anything off of that. All I had to do was just create a few formulas and do some basic math. That's it.
Yeah. And put together a program.
You know what I did? I just started working. That's it. I started getting clients. And then I built the operations around that, And so it's not rocket science, but so many people get tied up into I'll start charging when I do this. I'll start business when I do that. Guess what? Like,
just start.
You've been working on all these certifications. You've been doing all this development on websites and you're doing all these things. Guess what? Nobody knows who you are. Absolutely
Hmm.
no one. You've built this great business in the background. Nobody has a friggin' clue who you are because you have no brand presence out there. You have no personal brand. You haven't been active on social media. Nobody knows who you are. I was blessed because people already knew who I was from my corporate days, and I was active on LinkedIn writing already. I didn't know that what I was doing was already building a client base for when I went out on my own, but I did. So it wasn't rocket science. I still don't have a website. Don't need one.
Doesn't matter. No, you don't need one. It's a,
No.
it's just that's excuses. The toughest part, you know, I think the toughest part is getting out of your own way and just getting started.
Yeah.
That's the toughest part because it's the battle with yourself.
Yeah.
It's not a battle.
Yeah.
Which tools are going to work? Kajabi this, Stripe that. That doesn't matter. And
Yeah.
I agree
How
with
am I
you
going to make money
1,000%.
doing that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
And I
there's just
love,
all these things. I get it. Like, I get the
yeah.
story that you're telling yourself, but it's still bullshit
Hmm.
because, I know it's bold and I know it's in your face. If it's irritating you, if you're hearing this, why don't you give me a call? Because we could talk through it. If
There it
it's
is.
irritating you, you know why it's irritating you? Because you know it's not true. Like, and you don't want to do the stuff that you need to do. And I know that hurts hearing that and it's annoying, but if it does piss you off, there's a reason for it. Like, look, you could be doing a couple push-ups here and there. You don't need to go to the gym. If you want to work out, great, do 15 burpees a day. I promise you, you do 15 of those a day and you do that for 3 straight months, you'll notice a difference. Absolutely you will. Most people don't want to do that. They don't want to, but you could do it easily. You could do it while your kids eat. I had fun the other day. I like doing this weird cooking video in the morning on Facebook. I get on Facebook Live and I cook my breakfast and I share a random motivational message that just pops up into my head. I used to do it a long time ago when I was camping every day. And I was always like, it was called like Morning Meat with Matt. It was just this cheeky title. It was funny, and then for 2 years, people were asking me like, when are you going to do that cooking video again? That was always fun. I was like, I got a kick out of it. So I brought it back. I used my camping stove in my own kitchen. And when I get up and I do this video. Recently, though, I started wearing a 60-pound weighted vest while I do it too. And because one day I was like, man, I really want to go across the street and get a half dozen donuts. Like I kept thinking about it. I was like, so I put this 60-pound vest on me to help weigh me down so I don't go over there. But you know what though? I'm getting a workout in just walking around in this damn vest while I cook breakfast. You don't have to have a 60-pound vest though, but you can be creative and you can do stuff. You can calf raises where you stand, whatever. You can do stuff. You could walk
I love it.
outside
I
at
love
any
it.
given second and stretch and just breathe a few breaths of air. And so anyone who's telling me they don't have 15 minutes or 5 minutes to do something physical, you're a liar. You
Hmm.
just don't want to.
And the worst part is they're lying to themselves. They're not lying to you.
Yeah.
They're not lying to me. They're
Yeah,
lying to
you're not lying
themselves.
to me. I don't care
Yeah.
if you're trying to tell me excuses. I'm
Yeah.
just tired of you telling yourself excuses and being a victim. I've tried being a victim and I hated it.
Hmm.
I did not like the way that felt. I've been one though, and I've been pissed off like people didn't help me or rescue me really. My real friends, they definitely didn't rescue me because they knew I hadn't hit a real rock bottom yet. They knew that I could still make it. They would have if I was absolutely severely desperate. And I did have some people that were there when I was really, really in crisis. But other than that, no, the best thing they did for me was not rescue me. I don't rescue my clients. I don't. They don't need me to rescue them. They need to rescue themselves, and that's what I'm there for. There's a reason why, as coaches, we're not supposed to give advice. That's a consultant. That's a
Right.
mentor.
Oh,
We
that's
don't give
right.
advice. We don't. And look, if you have a coach right now and they're giving you advice, that's not a coach. That's somebody who's just like, I had good experience. I'll tell you how to live your life. That's not it. Don't pay for that. You're not going to learn anything from it at
Hmm.
all. You might get some good ideas, but it wasn't your idea. If I give you advice, I'm making an assumption that you're not creative enough to come up with your own solution. And I'm robbing you of the chance for you to figure it out. That's the same analogy as like giving a person a fish versus teaching them to fish.
Yeah.
I want this to be sustainable. And any coach that's just trying to keep you on the hook by saying you need, that's not good either. I
Yeah.
want to help you until you need to fire me. That's great. By the time that you need to let me go, I'm so happy for you. That's great. If you need to keep me because you like having me kind of on your board of directors kind of in your life, that makes sense too. That's cool. but in no way do I ever want to be something that you to.
And I think there's a lot of misconception out there between what a coach, a consultant, and a counselor is. They're three
Yeah,
completely different job titles, and there's
yeah,
responsibilities that are completely different too. A coach is not going to, as Matt said, give you advice and walk and hold your hand and walk you through the process. What we're going to do is we're going to build those strengths and we're going to make repetitive muscles out of them. And then we're going
yeah,
to take those weaknesses and build them up to strengths, not by telling you exactly what to do, but by making you think about what you can do to help
yeah.
build those weaknesses into strengths.
Absolutely.
So I
And the
love
work
that.
is intense. Like, look, as a coach in my work, I know that my work is really as close to therapy as you can get. It's not
Yeah.
therapy, it's
Yep.
therapeutic. Um, I did choose to go to get schooling in it just like you did. We're both, trained in coactive coaching and certified in that. And I love that. We took our life experiences and we paired it with an education. I think there's incredible value behind that.
I
And it
agree.
honors the industry that I'm in too. We're an unregulated, self-regulated industry. I want to honor that so we don't ever become regulated and end up like therapists and they take all of our fun away. So like I honor it by doing my certification, and that's me. I don't down anyone who doesn't get certified. That's fine. I did it for me, and I wanted to
Hmm.
honor my industry also and protect
Likewise.
it because there are a lot of people out there who just call themselves coaches and they're not. They're just doing consulting work,
Yeah.
and I don't think that's the best thing. So um, it's funny. I just got a text from someone who said they want to talk about Atomic. That's cool.
See,
Um,
there you go.
that's pretty wild. That's really cool. But
Well, Matt,
that's
I want
one
to
of the
be
things I believe in,
conscious.
though.
I want to
Yeah,
be
yeah,
conscious of your time and everything, but I really want to drive people to this because, like I said, I've been a big fan of yours. You and I have been following each other for many, many years. And I know that you know your shit. And, anybody that's looking into this, I love that you brought the fire again. It's just normal for you because I think people really need to see behind the mirage of the coaching industry and see what the real coaching does for people. So how can they find you and get in touch with you?
You know what? As I close in on this, there's something really important to say. Is
Yeah,
that
please.
as a coach, as a human, I'm also flawed. Like I battle mental health stuff. I have depression. I work through anxiety. I have illnesses. Like I work through stuff too. But guess what? Like I have a lot of extra tools in my tool belt that help me thrive through it. And I'm very open about that. And that's what makes me real. That's what gives me street cred, and it's what makes me relatable. And so I use those things and I talk about those things openly. So that's the thing. I want people to know like, hey, I'm not a perfect human being either. I'm in this with you. But guess what? I work with a therapist. I work with a coach. And any coach that doesn't work with another coach or therapist or whatever, that's not cool. Like that's a doctor saying they don't believe in doctors, like,
Yeah,
no, I got to do the work too. I'm always doing the work. I have my own village. So it's super important to know that. And that's what I also like too, is I want to be approachable and I want to be very real with you. And so, yeah, I got my stuff also. I've got the skill set now on how to work through it. And I still know that I need help outside of me to get there.
I love
So
that.
how to find me? You can find me on LinkedIn. You can search for me under my name, Matt Gagnon. Looks like Gagnon. You can't miss me. It's my profile. I'm ridiculously handsome. You can find. You can find the headline with all the emojis in it and stuff. Like that's me. And you can also find me on the Living with a Courageous Heart. You can find me on Instagram with I am Matt Gagnon. You can find my Atomic stuff on there too. You can also, I've got a TED Talk on YouTube. If you look up Living with a Courageous Heart, you can find my TEDx talk there. And this is probably the greatest honor of my career. This is like, to me, a bigger dream than doing the TED Talk is this
Being on this
fall,
show.
October. Like, it was obviously being on the bridge was like, I, I peaked, to be quite honest. Like everything's
Mom, I made
downhill
it.
from here. I've made it. Is October 23rd through the 25th is going to be the gathering in Banff out in Alberta. And I'll be speaking at it this year. And
Nice.
if you don't know what the gathering is, check it out. Like Google it, the Gathering Summit in Banff. Holy cow. I mean, this is an opportunity where you get on stage with CMOs from like Netflix, Spotify, the Lakers, all these different companies. But I'm going to be talking about Atomic Mornings this year because I've worked with so many people, in those positions and even that run that company. And it's an absolute honor to be up there and to serve that many people who have such a huge impact on so many others that I know there's a trickle down. And that's honestly, for anyone wondering why, is like, do you only work with executives because they pay more? Yeah, I know they pay more, but I know that also I'm only one human being and I want to have a massive impact. And I know that working with those individuals has a huge trickle down. Like, they're better with their families, they're better with their employees, they're leaders in their culture. They are overcoming limiting beliefs that put out new innovative ideas that have an impact on our economy. It's a huge trickle down. And I love that.
That's awesome.
So anyone can go to the gathering. I hope you check it out. But October 23rd through the 25th in Banff, check this. This is a game-changing event. It's my 5th year going, and I'm speaking at it. I can't wait.
I'll put it in the show notes too, so that way people can go check it all out.
Hot damn, awesome. I love it.
Matt, always a pleasure, man. Thank you so much for being on the bridge. And this was such a pleasure. And I'm really glad that you brought it today, because I think there's so much gold in here. And thank you so much, man. All right, everyone.
Pleasure,
thanks for hanging out with us, and see you in the next one.